Today we speak to Mr. Jos Douma. Mr. Douma is the special envoy for religion and belief of the Netherlands. And before that, he has performed several functions for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, both within and outside of Europe. Thank you for being here, Mr. Douma.
A pleasure, thank you.
Now, ReIReS is dealing with religion. We are building a research infrastructure for researchers and others who are dealing with religion and aspects like religious diversity, religious illiteracy. What are your experiences in this respect, Mr. Douma?
Well, on the literacy, that is an interesting issue. One of my tasks is to help my colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to improve knowledge of religion, and we call that religious literacy. That's not easy because of the, let's say, the secularized character of both the service itself and the staff. So we, together with the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam, we organize a number of seminars where people delve into the main world religions and then also confront each other and themselves with their experiences, their lack of experience, and also the sometimes vast richness of experience.
And do you notice the same phenomenon in, let's say, in the societies, in the European society? So not only on the field of the policymakers and the public actors, but also in the society itself?
Well, in this, you might say that we mirror society, that we as Foreign Service, that we are highly secularized, so to speak. The number of people who are believers, whatever religion, is relatively small. That's one. Secondly, that we have, let's say, become used ourselves to not expressing ourselves too much on your private convictions when it is religious, whereas some of the more libertine ideas that you find also in the Netherlands society are more easily expressed because we propagate freedoms. So the freedom of expression and the freedom of certain ways of living is more widely spread than the freedom of expressing yourself religiously. And that is due to the people themselves. That has nothing to do with any policy.
Yeah, and talking about that, do you notice any issues, so any problems related from this in the European context, I mean?
Well, okay, zooming out from the ministry, so to speak, we understand that there sometimes is a sort of a divide between East and West within the European Union. I should say that is more exploited by some of the conservative powers in the East than actually existing. And that deals with politicians in the East perceiving us in the West as libertine, propagating new ways of living together, so same-sex marriage, gender identity issues, and so on. So then we are sort of stuck in a debate in language quite often between conservatism and progressive views, whatever they may be.
What could a research infrastructure like ReIReS mean to you, talking about this kind of topics?
Well, I think that when we look at the European map in particular, let's focus on Europe first. Then you see that and we recently experienced that our knowledge of the religious map of the Balkans, for instance, the Western Balkans, is rather poor. We don't know that much of the history of the different religions, so of the people's convictions on the Western Balkans. And those convictions are important for their political actions. And states derive arguments from what is perceived as the religious position of the peoples on the Balkans. That's the Balkans. Then we have Central Europe, some Protestant influences, a rich Catholic influence, and then also, especially in the Czech Republic, this historical atheism that is about 100 years old. Do we speak each other's languages religiously? That is a question. And then, of course, we can come to Western Europe, where some of the religions feel being estranged from society, and that might have been in the 20th century a sort of theological connotation as being a stranger, an alien in a non-believing world. Now it is people's perception, people experience it. And you notice that especially in the debates about COVID, also here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, now you are the Dutch envoy for religion and belief. Does this development that you described, these phenomena, does these influence you in your personal work?
Yes, I need to understand what are the drivers of my counterparts. So, for instance, recently Turkey withdrew from the convention that is named after Istanbul. The treaty, the Council of Europe treaty, trying to prevent domestic violence, especially against women and girls. So Turkey withdrew. They use not directly, not immediately, religious arguments for it, society and so on. So it's the people, it's the political party that has an Islamic background. So indirectly, they use religious arguments. The same in some Central European countries that either have already ratified or are about to ratify. They also use then arguments that you could relate with their Roman Catholic background. And that is the challenge that we face politically and diplomatically in the European Union. And in the Council of Europe, I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Douma. Now, if we as ReIReS want to establish long-lasting relationships between researchers and public actors that have to deal with all these kind of religious-related issues, what would be your advice to us?
I think that most important is to bring people together, and that's what you actually do. I have one wonderful experience from my days that I served as chargé d'affaires at the Holy See, the Vatican. I met a professor at the Gregorian University, bringing together youth from Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I'm talking about 2010. So only 15 years after the war. And what he let these people do, these young people, talk to each other, but also pray together, not pray together to the same God, so to speak. So actually not praying together, but sitting together while praying. And so while experiencing their belief, their religion, they came more near to each other than would ever be conceivable. Okay, this is for youngsters. That is not something for theologians or scholars in religion, but it is an idea, bringing together and having people understand each other. That is beyond my mandate, to be frank. This is something indeed for experts like ReIReS.
Well, thank you very much for this advice, Mr. Douma. We will bring it back to ReIReS. Actually, this is also where we are working on and what we are aiming at, to create this understanding between people from different religions in Europe. I thank you very much for this interview, Mr. Douma, and I hope we will meet again somewhere on some place.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.